Hey everyone, welcome back to the Layback Podcast. Joining us today is a guest I'm really excited about. He has been a partner of ours for an incredibly long time, and I tell you what, this man does more with less better than just about anyone. It's none other than Hayden Dow, the pitching coach and recruiting coordinator at South Arkansas Community College, located in the lovely town of El Dorado, Arkansas. And as you guys know, I don't like butchering anybody's intros, so I'm going to toss it over to Hayden, let him pick up the pieces and talk about how he got to where he is now. Then we'll get into the nitty gritty after that. So, Hayden, thanks again for coming on. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Adam. I'm really excited about it. Just grateful you reached out and had me on here. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit how I got here and where I'm at today, I guess. I'll try and be as short with it as I can. Played high school baseball, was a decent high school baseball player. I ended up going to the University of Central Arkansas out of high school. Didn't play baseball. I was one of those guys in college, Mike could have played somewhere small. There's a lot of junior colleges popping up in Arkansas now. That would have honestly been the perfect road for me. But just honestly probably wasn't good enough. So ended up didn't play college ball. Knew I wanted to coach though, going into college and getting out and that kind of thing. So work through college, spend my time in college, get a degree in physical education, teacher education, looking to coach, and then start looking for jobs. I end up getting an offer from El Dorado High School, and that's where I started. So this is my 8th year in coaching. So I spent 3 years at the high school. When I was there, Coach Cannon Lester, he was hired as the head coach that same year I got hired as the assistant. And being around him, man, I can't say enough about that guy. He really has just put me on the path I'm on today. And it was awesome just getting put with him. It was just kind of a lucky deal. So I ended up, I coached for 3 years at the high school here in town with him. And then by that third year, I kind of looked at him and I was like, man, like, I don't know if high school is where I want to be. Like, I kind of want to take the next step. Really would like to get into college ball. And so he played at Southern Arkansas University, which is about 40 minutes down the road. He coached there for a little bit, and I was like, man, you think you could possibly get me on there? Because he still had really good connections with their head coach, everything. And he said, man, we can try, yeah. So he talked to Coach Justin Pettigrew at Southern Arkansas, and luckily they needed a GA at the time. And he was like, yeah, come on. So he gave me a chance. I got over there, got to get my foot in the door in college baseball. And I was there for a year at Southern Arkansas as a GA. And that was just an awesome experience. Got to learn kind of what college baseball really looks like on the coaching side. And then I planned on staying there for another year. And that's about the time, I think, probably around May of 2021, that spring. Cannon Lester, he actually calls me, and we had stayed pretty close, but he calls me and said, hey, the junior college here in town, South Ark, they're starting a baseball team. Come be my pitching coach. I was like, okay, like what's the deal with it, And he said, well, we have to have a team by August. And I was like, in like 2 months, August. And he said, yeah. And so that was tough. I thought about it for a little bit, prayed about it a lot, but I realized, that's what I want to do. It's a challenge, but I want to coach pitchers. It's what I've been wanting to do at the college level. So dove in with it, and now we're in our 4th year as a program. Had some really good things happen. A lot of really good players come through, and that's kind of how I got to where I am right now.
That's awesome. There's so many things we could pick on there. Your journey through education. I guess I should have mentioned early on, you're also a professor at South Arkansas right now.
Yeah,
So
I
what
am.
what classes are you teaching?
So I teach kinesiology. I actually got my master's while I was GAing in kines, and then I also have to teach a medical terminology class too.
Yeah, so you're a walking medical dictionary on top
I
of.
would definitely not say that. Definitely not.
Well, I'll say it. I'll brag for you, and we can let people assume what you actually know from there. But yeah, quite the path. I think that is really cool that baseball and coaching is something that you were so passionate about, even though you didn't play the sport in college. So were there ways you were able to stay connected to the game? I know you said you worked throughout college. Were you able to do any coaching or lessons or anything like that while you were in school?
No, I really didn't, honestly. Of course, like watched baseball all the time. And it was one of those things I always grew up. I was very passionate about it. And honestly, towards the end of high school, I think it was maybe a little bit of burnout, just kind of, I don't know if this is what I want to do. And then I think once I got into college, I got away from the game. And that was kind of like, man, I really messed up. Like, I need to get back into this. And so that's kind of, I think, what got me back going into baseball.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you talked about your passion for pitching and coaching pitchers. So did you play pitcher, or what is it about the position that ultimately drew you back?
So I was actually a catcher all growing up. I mean, I would like to think I was a decent defender on the catching side. And so, I always thought I was decent, pretty good at talking to pitchers, getting them through things and just helping them out a little bit. Spent a lot of time catching bullpens at practice, that kind of thing. And it was learning from our coaches then, and had some really good mentors when I was younger growing up, just to kind of see and get to watch them interact with pitchers and talk through it. And I just always thought that was cool. I threw pretty well, and I always thought it was interesting. I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I actually could throw it pretty decent. So I thought it was always interesting to try and kind of learn, like, what is it that I do decently well that'll let me throw it a little bit, and how can I teach that to other guys and show them that too.
No doubt. And another big piece here that we buried the lead on a little bit, you said you've been fortunate to have a ton of success early on. I think even stating it that way is a bit of an understatement. Y'all have been a program for less than 5 years and have already made two trips to the Division II Junior College World Series. So how have you guys been able to build a program with such success, especially calling back to what you said? Coach Lester called you and said, hey, we need a team in 2 months. And a few years later, you guys are already an absolute powerhouse in the region, and you're threatening to take the title in Enid every year.
Yeah. So, like I said, I think when they started this, Coach Lester, he got hired probably at the beginning of May in 21. I was officially hired at the beginning of June of 21. And so then it was like, yeah, we have to have a team ready to go in the fall by middle of August. So we're pretty much scrambling. We're talking to high school coaches around Arkansas, a little bit around Louisiana, and just saying, hey, who do you have that can play catch? Like, send them to us. I mean, literally, like, can they field the ball? Can they play catch? And let's send them to us. I think we somehow found around 45 guys probably, and most of these guys are, I mean, no one's ever talked to them. I think we had about $8,000 in scholarship money, so it was kind of like, yeah, if you guys are on, a tiny bit of money, and that's how we kind of got a few guys. But I mean, most of these players, nobody else had ever talked to them. They just wanted to go somewhere to play. And honestly, I think that helped us more than anything, because like these were guys that they were going to do just about anything. They wanted to be there. They wanted to play. They didn't care that we were a new team. They didn't care that we didn't have certain things or whatever it might have been. They weren't looking for the big, nice facilities, that kind of thing. They just wanted to play baseball. So yeah, we start in August with all these guys. And I think one of our big things from day one, Coach Lester and myself, it was, we are doing this to get players better and to send them out to the next level. Like, yeah, we want to win. Everybody wants to win. Like, don't get me wrong. We want to win a national championship. We want to get there. But like, if we can get these kids to have success along the way and then send them out to places they want to go or to somewhere they never thought they could, like, that's the biggest win for us. And we still try and look at it like that. But anyway, so we start in August. I honestly thought we were probably going to win 2 or 3 games that year, just the way it started. But man, we had a lot of really good kids. Man, they really got after it. Just they really good team. A culture was built, that was really strong. And it was just a lot of learning going on. So that first year we get into the spring, from the time the fall started to the spring, man, they just got so much better. I will never forget our first game ever in the fall. We actually played Eunice, and Eunice was coming off a national championship. They were really good again, obviously, and we play them, and they put it on us. It was rough, but me and Lester, we kind of looked at each other and we are like, man, this is what it looks like. This is what a good team looks like. And our guys, I think that kind of hit them too. And we told them, we're like, hey, that's what a good team looks like. Like that's the level we need to try and get to. So then we just start working, and then by the spring rolls around, our guys, they've done well. We go through that first year. I think we ended up winning 28 games, made the regional, I think by a game, made it in as the last seed, and ended up making a little bit of a run in the regional. I think we ended up going 3-2 in the regional, lose out. But then we come back the next year, and luckily we recruited pretty well that year. We had a full year to recruit, which was not a lot better than 2 months. Uh, yeah, we recruited pretty well, and then all those returning guys that were going to be sophomores, man, they had just been thrown into the fire that first year, and it was kind of they're all freshmen, and it's kind of like, hey, let's go figure it out, boys. So their sophomore year, they really knew what it looked like. And man, they were an awesome group. I love those guys. Love to be around them. So their second year though, their sophomore year, they led our younger guys and they just took over. And that was one of the funnest teams I've ever been around. Just how much they loved each other, how much they loved being around the game and the field, and really, really such a fun team to be around. Yeah, we had an unbelievable year that year. Won our region by about 2 or 3 games, I think. Had a decent little lead in there, and then go into the regional as the 1 seed. End up winning the regional and going to the World Series for the first time, and so that was awesome. Just kind of building off it into the next year, and that last year, I guess, had another really good year. Struggled a little bit early, but we got hot down the stretch at the end, probably the last month or so of the season. Really started playing well and putting everything together. And yeah, we end up back in the World Series, working this year, trying to make it back again.
Yep. Yeah, it seems like year 3, this time might be the charm. Third time's the charm.
So
Hopefully,
we're
hopefully
hoping
bring
for.
home a trophy, some
Yeah,
hardware. That'd be
that's
pretty
what we're
neat.
hoping for.
One of the things, calling back to that fall of 2021 when you guys were just getting started, you said you were able to create an awesome culture. I assume some of it had to be guys could just look around and be like, well, there's nowhere to go but up. Like, we were last picks, nobody else wanted us. Like, we might as well just do it. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, no, I think that was probably a big part to it. And I mean, we told our guys straight up from the get-go, it was kind of like, hey, we're gonna train a little bit different, but we know that that's what we y'all need. It's what you've got to do. And hey, just try and stay with us, trust us a little bit on this, and we're gonna do everything we can to get you where you're going. So a lot of guys, they really bought in on that, and it was tough for a lot of them. A lot of those guys, they had a hard time with it, especially early. But the ones that really stuck it out, I can't even begin to explain how much better they got just at baseball in general. It was awesome to see.
So what did training different look like then? And are those things that y'all are still doing now?
Yeah, I think a little bit. I think Coach Lester and I, we think outside of the box a little bit, or I think we probably do, just as far as kind of what we do on a daily basis, just on the pitching side and kind of what we do every day with the pitchers. When I was at Southern Arkansas as a graduate assistant, the beginning of the year you start and it's 6-on-1s with the coach, or it might be 6-on-2s now. I don't know what the rules changed to. But we started that, and I was like, man, this is a really good way to set up practice. And so we kind of do that all year round with the pitchers. I bring them in groups of 4, 6, sometimes a little bit bigger, sometimes maybe just 2 guys, just depending on the day. And we get our work in, and then after that, it's kind of like, hey guys, go home, go recover. Like, I'm not going to make you stick around and shag BP, that kind of thing. It's like, hey, go take care of schoolwork, go recover, or stay out here at the field and like just get as many reps as we can. And then some of the training things we do, I think, are pretty non-traditional, I would say. We like to have a lot of fun at practice, so we do a lot of different things. One of my favorite things the pitchers do, we actually did it last week. We take exit velo off the tee, and yeah, these are POs, and they're going up there just taking hacks. I think we had 3 or 4 guys last week go over 100 miles an hour as a PO, but it's just training rotational speed, and they love it. It's fun for them. It's fun for me. A lot of energy. I think we do things a little bit differently on the training side.
Well, thank you for doing things differently, because I suppose if you didn't do things differently, we probably wouldn't know each other right now.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah. So again, thanks for bringing us on. So sticking with the way you set up practices, I think that's super innovative. You get a lot more valuable touches with guys instead of more being a program coordinator. You can actually work with them in these
Right.
smaller environments. And then it sounds like you're just setting up a bunch of situations where guys can be athletic and compete.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that pretty much hits the nail on the head. I mean, my big thing is I want as much one-on-one time with guys as I can get. If I've got 15 pitchers there at one time, I'm probably focusing on one guy and neglecting 14, or I'm trying to just coordinate all 15 together, and it gets tough. If I can bring them in small groups, I can work with each guy individually a lot. I get a lot of individual time with them, whether it's for 15 minutes or an hour. It's helping them just one-on-one, and I think that makes a big difference.
So are you staggering when guys show up to practice?
Yeah, yeah. So typically I'll get done teaching class, depends on the day, but usually around 10, sometimes a little later, sometimes a little bit before. But then I'll usually go out to the field around 10:30 or so. I'll have my first group come at 10:45, 11, and then I'll have groups coming every hour, hour and a half until 4, 5, 6 o'clock, however long I'm out there. Yeah, that's pretty much how we typically run it daily.
And then sticking on this theme of practice design, because it sounds like you're doing things differently, are guys on similar throwing plans? Is it dependent on group or individual? How do you handle that? Is it just based on guys like class schedules, is how they're set up to come to practice? Or is it like, no, these are our guys that need to build throwing volume, so they're grouped together. These are the guys that were working on pitch design, so they're grouped together. Or how do you structure that?
Yeah, I try and put the guys that are working on something specifically, I try and put them together. But of course, they've got class, so that can throw it off a little bit. Check all their class schedules at the beginning of the semester and see when they can come throughout the week each day. But then, yeah, I try and group them together as best as I can to where it's like, hey, this guy needs this guy needs this. And yeah, I'll say that like all their throwing programs, it's all going to look different. I mean, it's just individual what each guy needs. I've got some guys like I think if they go out and long toss, like it's great for them. Just keeps building it. They like to do it. It's really good. And then I've got other guys like we throw about 90 feet and that's it. Because that's just what we think they need. Makes their arm feel good, that kind of thing. It's what has worked best for them.
For sure. And then, well, my mind now can't get away from this. I should have addressed it right away, but you said breaking up these time slots and having guys coming in. It just went straight over my head when you first said it, but you really extended your day and you've shortened the day for the individuals. So,
Yeah.
one, I think that's selfless. It adds value for them. I know it's tougher for you, but now on the life side of things, how much does your wife hate that?
So honestly, I usually can finish since I am starting a little bit earlier. I'm usually home by 5:30, 6 o'clock, maybe a little bit later. So about the time she's getting off work too. So during the week, most of the time she's good with it. She really doesn't have a problem with it. So the weekends when we're gone for 2 or 3 days in a row, then she's like, "Man, when are y'all coming home?" And I'm like, "I know, yeah, it's a long weekend, but no, she's a trooper and she's a team player. She's pretty bought into what we're doing, so uh,
Heck yeah.
she's good with it.
I assume she had to be the number one South Ark fan.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Okay, like I said, I couldn't let that go. I
Yeah.
I thought of it just because I do think what you're doing is great for the player, but I understand it can take a little bit of a toll on you if you have to kind of get up and be ready for 5, 6 groups a day, not
Yeah.
just get up once for 2 hours. So how are you able to prep or make sure that you really are prepared for these 5 or 6 different groups of guys that you might see in a given day?
Obviously, like I have to sit down and look through everything before we go out there, whether it's in my office before the day or a lot of times I like to sit down on the weekend and it's kind of, all right, this is what we need to accomplish this week, or with this group, I need to be working on this, or with this individual guy, it's like, hey, we have to talk through this or work on pitch development or whatever it might be, or basic movement. So yeah, it definitely takes some planning for that. I've done it this way for all 4 years now, and I think it's definitely worth it. Yeah, it's a little bit more time, but I mean, man, I'm out at the baseball field all day. Like, it's hard to complain about that. Me, me and Coach Lester make a joke. So when I taught at the high school, I actually taught geometry, high school geometry. And man, whenever the day does get long, or I start, man, I've been out here for forever. It's just kind of like, hey, but I'm not in the geometry classroom. Like, I'm out here in the field. So yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but it's definitely worth it. I think definitely worth it for our guys too.
For sure. And I would also have to guess that these smaller groups makes it a little bit easier to utilize things. I know ahead of time I talked to you about the way you've been able to implement technology, even with a smaller budget or smaller resources. You can probably make things go a little bit farther when you are in these small groups, like
Sure,
implementing FlexPro Grip, whereas you might
sure.
not be like one of the big schools that has 10 devices, but
Right.
you can have two devices work across six guys for 30 minutes and then they go to the next group of guys. How have you been able to handle that, implement different things? I'm assuming FlexPro Grip isn't the only tool or like technological piece that you've been able to use with
Yeah.
this setting.
Yeah, for sure. FlexPro Grip, we've got two devices, which for a while we only had one. And when we finally got a second one, my guys loved it because the workouts, they take, 10 minutes, 12 minutes, something like that a day. But when there'd be five guys waiting on one guy to finish up, they're kind of like, man, I'm going to be here for an hour. So yeah, they love having two now. But yeah, that's been great for that. That way, like I said, if all my guys do come in and we've only got two devices, a lot of them are going to be sitting around waiting. Well, if there's only six there for that group, they can be in and out in 25, 30 minutes once they start going on FlexPro. They really appreciate that. I know. Wish we could get all the technology. I'd love to have TrackMan at our stadium. I'd love to have a Newt Force mound, Sensor Edge, or whatever, and all these things. But it's just we're a small budget school. It's tough to afford. Now we do some fundraising, and we try and get what we can. But a lot of stuff I'll either look at online, and I'm like, man, I can figure out a way to make something similar to that, or it's I can throw some money out of my pocket just because I think it'll help our guys that much. I know our first FlexPro Grip that we bought, I bought it out of my pocket just because I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was cool, and it was kind of like, hey, I think this will be worth it. And then once we get started on the program, we're like, yeah, this is awesome. Let's get another, and we can use some of our budgeted money. But no, we've had several things some things that we can buy, but then things that I see and it's like, man, I can make that. I know armcare.com, their device, I really like it. I think it's a really good idea, just especially prep throwing. But I was kind of like, man, it's hard to afford a lot of them. Not that it's overly expensive or anything. It's just, but I think I could make something similar. So honestly, I got a crane scale and we put some straps on it, and my guys just sit there and pull on it at each different angle. I, read into the arm care stuff as much as I could. Basically, we track that every day, and that's one thing my guys do every day. We have to get creative with a lot of things. If we can't go out and get it, I tell our guys this all the time. If we can't go out and get it, we'll find a way to make it or figure out a way to use it. Now, I'm not saying about crane scales either. It's not going to be perfect like armfair.com, but it suffices for what it is.
Heck yeah. You got any other MacGyvered creations that you
Uh,
guys have?
there's been a bunch over the years trying to think. I know a few years ago, so we're big on verticals. We test verticals every Sunday when we lift. We test verticals. Now we actually have a jump mat, just the black mat with a little computer. It'll tell you your vertical.
Yep.
Uh, I forget what it's called.
Just
Uh,
jump, if I'm not
yeah, just
mistaken.
jump. Yeah.
Yep.
So we've actually got one of those now, but I think probably our second year that we were going, that's when I kind of got big into our verticals and trying to correlate all that with our pitching data and our hitting data. We didn't have a Vertitech or anything, so I was kind of like, I'll build one. So I've still got it somewhere, but it was basically built out of PVC, and Is that what it's called, a vertitech, where they jump up and they hit the little
Oh,
flat?
you just like hit the little
Yeah,
things that come out. I
yeah,
don't
they
know what it's
scoop.
called, but I can picture what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah. So I actually built one of those out of PVC pipe and then some kind of material I use for the things, and it was actually really accurate. But man, it would fall over, and man, it was a pain. So yeah, luckily we invested in a just jump mat. That was a nice one for us.
Nice. Well, I think that's cool that you've labeled things that are important to you and you're just figuring out ways to get it done.
Yeah.
And if you determine, yes, that this is something we really care about, we are going to invest in it, like the Just Jump mat. So is there anything that you found with the Just Jump mat, or like what's the reason that that's so powerful in your programming?
Typically, our most athletic guys, typically are guys that throw the hardest, are guys that hit the ball the hardest. They usually jump the highest. They usually run the fastest. Now, recently, I've dove down into the motor preference stuff quite a bit. Coach Swope out of Maryland, they're big on it, I know. But yeah, I've dove into that quite a bit, and so I'm seeing things from a little bit different lens. Still, it just your most explosive guys, your most powerful guys, those are usually your guys that are going to throw the ball the hardest. They're going to hit the ball the hardest. So we train that a lot, and we see that's where we see a lot of gains. It's one of those things that's easy to see. I've got two or three guys right now that they're 40+ inch verticals, and they throw the ball really hard. I mean, one's 95 plus, others mid 90s, and it's kind of like, yeah, they throw it hard. Or we've got quite a few others that are 35+ inches, and they all either hit the ball really hard or they can throw it pretty good. We train that a lot.
That's awesome. And I guess speaking of investment, you guys have also outsourced a lot of the performance training you're doing, correct?
Yeah, yeah, we have.
Yeah, so what kind of led you down that road, or why did that make sense for the program?
So we started working this year with Power Lab Texas. Man, he's a guy, his name's Jacob Manaska. Really good. He's a young guy, just really studies strength and conditioning, the weight room stuff. And we actually had quite a few guys that trained at his place, and he's in Dallas. Yeah, a few guys that trained at his place. I had talked to him a lot. I was like, I need to find out, because I've always rode all of our weight room, our programs pretty much. So I talked to him a lot over the past couple of years, and he does a lot of stuff that's similar to what we like to do. Honestly, he probably just studies it a little bit more than I do. And so finally, I was like, hey, man, like, what do we got to do to get you on board? If you can do help with our programming and writing it, it'll save me a little bit of time. Plus, I think you know more about it than I do. So like I'm all in, and yeah, he started helping us a lot this year. He's been awesome with our programming. We use a lot of VBT stuff, a lot of jump training, so a lot of plyometric stuff, and he's just been really good for it. And our guys love the lifts, and they're getting crazy strong. So yeah, shout out to Jacob, because it's been awesome having him on board.
And you said VBT. So do you guys have sensors or different things at your disposal that y'all can use? Or did
Yeah,
you jerry rig those as well?
yeah, so I have jerry rigged some before. If you dig down a rabbit hole, probably on YouTube or something, there's an app somewhere. I can't remember what it's called, but it's actually on your iPhone, and you can get it, and it will basically work as a VBT. Not sure how accurate it is, but yeah, you can pretty much duct tape that to a bar, and it'll tell you how fast you're moving. Yeah, luckily we haven't had to go down that road. We've got a few sensors. I think we have five now that we use in our weight room. We kind of have to our lifting groups, we kind of have to move them around where people go from one place to another to where it lines up to where not everybody's waiting on a sensor. Even with five, we can work out plenty of guys at the same time. We love using VBT sensors.
How many days a week are y'all training in general? And then how many days a week are y'all using VBT? Is it always a part of your workout, or is it just a part of assessments?
Yeah, so we're in the weight room 3 days a week. We've done more in the past, gone 4 days, but honestly, we just don't think our guys recover well enough just because it's long days. So we go 3 days a week. I think it's perfect. And then yeah, with every lift they do, they're gonna have something using a sensor. Usually it's one of the main lifts. Usually it's gonna be squat, deadlift, bench press even, and that's pretty much as far as we'll go as using the sensor. We think it's that beneficial when a guy can, no matter what weight they have on, if they're trying to hit a number, their max effort on every rep. And that it's just we've seen it. It plays huge payout, and we love that.
So have y'all shifted your focus a little bit in the training world from what weight guys are doing to how fast they're moving?
Yeah, big time, I would say. A lot of our lifts, we range from as high as zero point 0.9 to as low as 0.45 on our meters per second on our lifts. And kind of from day one, we've always known something about one rep maxes. There's a lot of different factors that can go into it. And, some of it's just a guy doesn't feel that great that day, and he might have a bad one rep max. And then he comes in 2 days later, feels great, and he might shoot up 20 pounds on a one rep max. There's a lot of variability there. With the VBT, if they say they are having that low day where they don't feel as good, well, then it's just we're trying to hit that number so we can adjust the weight. You're still going 100% even though you don't feel great. Or the days that we feel great, you might be adding a lot more weight, hitting the same number. So yeah, I mean, just ton of value to it.
And are you able to use this kind of data-driven approach on the field as well? It sounds like you guys have done the best you can, whether it's radar guns, FlexPro, VBT in the weight room. How are you able to implement this kind of approach back in practice or games?
Yeah, I mean that's where we try and track, as much as we can,
Yeah.
and all this information that we're getting. That's our big thing. If we're tracking something and we see, okay, this really isn't benefiting us at all on the field, because that's the only thing that really matters, then we're probably going to stop doing it. I think a lot of people probably get lost in the weight room a little bit where it just turns into ego lifting or see how strong we can get. Honestly, our first year as a program, that's kind of where we were. Our guys, we got huge. We were really strong. We had some massive dudes, but wasn't exactly translating to the field. And that's the only thing that matters for us is what's going to translate. So yeah, when we're just tracking and we can see, okay, yeah, this guy's vertical's going up, his numbers lifting are going up as far as speed. That's where we usually start to see, okay, guys are starting to feel good. They start making jumps on the mound. Velo starts going up, start hitting the ball a little bit harder. Yeah, so I mean, that's just the main thing we're looking for. And like I said, if we start doing something where we think it's not benefiting that, then it's kind of like, all right, we need to change. I don't think me or Coach Lester, either one, we are definitely not scared to change or make changes with things. We try and stay pretty open minded.
Do you have examples of anything that y'all have stripped out of your programming because you weren't seeing gains?
Yeah, for sure. Probably too much to think of or count. Like I said, I mean, just easy one. That first year, we were lifting huge. Honestly, it was like when we were in the weight room, it looked like a football team. Just a lot of screaming, a lot of ego lifting. We would one rep max all the time. Honestly, we don't even one rep max anymore. We max with the VBTs. It's a 3 rep max, and it pretty much calculates to a 1 rep max. But then, we have a lot of guys, and we go off formulas where we say they've gotten to where they're strong enough. And that's where we really start working on the plyometric side or the speed and explosive side once they can hit certain numbers. So that's been a really big thing for us over the years. Or it might be something as simple as this guy comes in and he jumps his vertical that week and he's way down. It's kind of like, man, he needs a deload. He's tired. He's done. I mean, we got to deload him. It's hurting him. I don't even remember. Your question was, yeah.
Anything you stripped out? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would say from the weight room, definitely. There's been quite a few things. Not as many bilateral lifts. We like doing a lot of one-legged stuff. I think one thing we've added here in the past couple of years, we love throwing med balls. I think everybody likes throwing med balls. One thing we've changed about it, we've got 2-pound med balls all the way up to 12-pound med balls. we take the radar guns in the weight room and we see how hard we can throw those things. And we've seen it correlates on the pitching side, especially hitting too. But on the pitching side, it really correlates how hard a guy can throw a med ball. Kind of some Bill Miller stuff. If you've seen him on Twitter,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, some of his throw fast stuff. Yeah, we dove a lot into that. One thing about that, our guys love it because they get to see how hard they're throwing, but then they get competitive in the weight room too. They start going at each other, start talking a little bit. Like those are the fun days when we start throwing med balls.
No doubt. Yeah, it sounds like guys are getting to compete all the time in your program. I know we talked
Yeah.
about that earlier, so I'm not necessarily going to make you bring it up again, but it's cool to know that that environment is evident across the board with everything y'all are doing. But you did a great job citing it in the weight room or in training. I wonder if there's anything maybe on the practice field that you've stripped out. Maybe you guys were, I don't know, you were tracking flat ground strike percentage and then realized like, oh, that just doesn't translate to anything when the hitter steps in the box. Like anything like that.
Definitely. Like I said, I think we're both think of things a little bit differently. We're very open to change. I definitely wouldn't say we're old school, but there are still some of those old school things that we do like to do. Some of the kind of things that we have kind of done away with a little bit. That's one thing I'll tell my pitchers. It's like, hey, we aren't going to throw much flat ground. Like, let's go get on the mound. Even if you're a low intent that day, my bullpens. So we actually built our bullpens by hand, our whole area when we first started this thing because we play out at a city field right now. We're actually getting a stadium built, which I'm really excited for. But yeah, we play out of a city complex, and it was like there wasn't really a bullpen out there, so we had to build them. So I was like, all right, if we're doing this, we're putting in as many mounds as possible. So I've got 6 mounds down there, and then we've got a few temp mounds that we bring in too, and we can throw into a net. My guys, I tell them as many times as a week as we can, let's get on the mound and just feel ourselves down the mound. Whether it be we're actually throwing, or we might be doing water bag stuff, or even just PVC stuff. Let's go off the mound as much as possible and feel ourselves down the slope. I think that's a huge thing for us. I don't think anybody cares what their flat ground velo is or that kind of thing. They want to see what they can actually do up there. And then yeah, I mean there's been all kinds of things throughout the years. Trying to think, hard to think off the top of my head.
It's all good. I put you on the spot with those, but I love that. And the fact that you built 6 bullpens and then you said you bring out a couple more is awesome. One of the things that I love most about it is it becomes super evident to any player in the program or any recruit that comes in and watches you guys what is important.
Yeah,
And for you guys, getting on the slope is important. You are
right.
keeping the main thing the main thing.
Yeah,
And the fact that that is obvious and upfront makes it so much easier to fall in line, going back to the culture stuff that we talked about earlier.
for sure. For sure. No, I think I love what you said there. Make the main thing the main thing. Like we say that a lot. I'll talk with my pitchers a lot, and we do a lot of random stuff training, a lot of stuff that I think's good and it's beneficial. Like even like exit velos off the tee with the pitchers. Like I think it's good. I think it has benefit, but we talk about it all the time. Like let's make the most important thing at practice the most important thing every single day, and that's when we throw. Like what are you getting out of it when we actually throw? And that has to be the most important thing each day. Even if it's only 10, 15, 20 minutes that day, it has to be the most important thing.
So, how do you ensure from your position that each guy knows what is most important? Is it a theme across the board, or do guys know what they're chasing individually? I'm sure that changes from time to time, but I'd love to get your perspective on all of it.
Right. So yeah, I think it changes definitely a lot because guys, they clean things up as we go throughout the year. But my guys, they all know what they're trying to do or what they're trying to get out of their throwing each day or whatever drills we might be doing or anything. They know what they're trying to get out of it or trying to feel, whether it's something mechanical or working on a different pitch. They have an idea. We try and talk through it as much as possible. And again, I think that goes back to keeping it in small groups. I have time to where I can explain these things to my guys and they can learn what it is that they're trying to do or what they need to do or how to feel it, that kind of thing. So I think that's been really good for my guys to have something to chase instead of just saying, hey, everybody, we're going to do these drills today. Go get after it. And I think a lot of guys, they have a hard time with that. Our guys, they typically know exactly what they're trying to get out of the day, whether it's a light day or heavy day, whatever it is.
So the why is just made to be very evident to them, or at
Yeah.
least that's the goal.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, like I said, always it's always keep the main thing, and that's throwing, whatever throwing we're doing that day. I'll have a lot of guys come in, especially freshmen at the beginning of the year, and I have to go through this exact plyo routine and this and whatever else. And it's kind of like, hey man, like when are you going to pick up the 5 ounce baseball and throw it off the mound? Like let's work on the thing that's really going to make you better and that's going to benefit you the most. I think all that other stuff can be good, like I said, but it's kind of like let's spend the most time on what's the most important.
Right. At the end of the day, you have to get outs. And are you more concerned about trying to get outs or doing things that are going to help you get outs, or just checking off boxes of a routine because you developed this routine and now you just feel like you have to do it?
Right, exactly. I think that's something a lot of guys they kind of get lost in. And I'll ask them, I'll be like, "Hey, why are you doing that drill?" And some of them they'll hit me back with, "Well, it makes me feel really good or loosens up this or just I like it." Like, and I'm like, "Okay, like you're good. Keep doing it. I'm good with that." But some of them are like, I had this coach this one time and he told me it's good for arm care." And I'm like, what is it? What's it caring for? What's it helping? And they're just like, I really don't know. And I'm like, okay, then we probably, what are we doing? We probably don't need to do that. It's
Yeah.
definitely a big learning process for them.
Yeah, it's a constant audit, which I think is great if you can have those conversations with guys.
Mhm.
I've had this conversation with a handful of people, and maybe this will sound like a broken record on here, but if somebody thinks something is helpful to them and they can cite why they believe it's helpful, then great. Like there's no bad drill,
Yep.
then there's no good drill. There's just drills that make sense for individuals.
100%. Eugene Bleecker at 108, him and Will Marshall talk with Will quite a bit, and they say it best. They say everything is good and everything sucks, and we say it all the time because they're so true.
I think you saying that right there opens up the door to a topic I definitely want to get into with you. You've cited these different people that you've researched or talked to or followed. How have you been able to constantly grow in your position? You guys are a small coaching staff. It's probably difficult to take time to yourself to become better when you always have to be ready for the player that's going to come in and ask a question.
Yeah.
how how do you dedicate time to it? What are you looking for? Just shed some light on that, please.
Yeah, so I'll try and be pretty quick on this, but
Take as long as you want, don't worry.
yeah,
This is your podcast.
man, it goes back. So when I first got hired at Dorado High School with Coach Lester down here, I first moved down here. I'm from Central Arkansas, so I'm about 2.5 hours away from home. My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she was starting law school in Fayetteville. So she was about 5.5 hours from me. And I'm moving down here alone. Don't know anybody. That's kind of where it starts. Well, as soon as I get down here, I go and meet with Coach Lester. And I think we were watching a game in July or August one day. We were sitting at his house. He's like, hey, come watch this game. I was like, all right. And we're just sitting there. I'm fresh out of college. I thought I knew a lot about baseball. Like I really did. I thought this coaching stuff, it'll be easy. I'll just jump into it and I'll be one of the greats. I sat down with him for about 5 minutes and just listening to him talk about baseball, I learned I know absolutely nothing. Uh, and yeah, it was kind of a scary thought. And then, man, I think the best thing that ever happened, we show up to the high school. He's a big time hitting guy. He doesn't want anything to do with pitchers. And he looked at me at the high school and he said, hey, you want the pitchers, right? And I was like, yeah. And he said, you got them. And for 3 years, I don't know if he ever said a word to me about them. He was like, if you want them, go figure them out, like figure out how to get them better. So I said, okay. So anyways, yeah, I'm down here alone for 3 years and I have nothing else to do. I either get done with baseball practice at the end of the day, or I get done. I had to coach seventh and eighth grade football at the high school too. I would get done with practice and I would go home and man, I would just start looking stuff up and researching. And I mean, I probably did it 4 or 5 days a week where it was just straight up researching whatever I could find on pitching, whether it's mechanics, anything. And so yeah, I look through if any big indoor or anything you've probably ever heard of, I probably looked at it at some point. And I did that for about 3 years straight and I learned a whole lot. It was awesome. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think it definitely changed my career. I look back on it and I'm really thankful for that time, but I got to really just study everything and learned so much during those 3 years. I still feel like I don't know anything. I'll get humbled every now and then. Like as soon as I feel like I'm picking up on something or how I can help guys. Baseball, it humbles you all the time, and it just hits me in the butt, and I'm like, man, I know nothing again.
Hmm.
So now, like, I'll get hit with that, and it's like time to go start looking again. Try and read as much as I can, watch as many videos, listen to podcasts, anything that's out there. I want to try and get my hands on it.
No doubt. I'm sure one of the biggest unintended positive consequences that has come from this is not just learning what you do want to teach, it's learning what is not worth it to you. Just
Yeah,
stuff that you can just throw out the window right away and not waste your time on.
for sure. And yeah, I learned all these things in such a short period of time. And man, I would try and just implement everything. And I was either it wasn't right for certain guys or I was just killing guys, just wearing them out with stuff. And that's when Lester every now and then can, and he'll look at me and he'll be like, hey, you're doing way too much. Yeah, he's pretty good at humbling me, but it's a good thing. He'll be like, yeah, you're doing way too much. And I'm like, man, you're right. Like they can't handle all this. So yeah, over the years, I've definitely learned what I think are the most important things and how to implement it a little bit better. So I'm not just crushing guys.
Develop your own pillars in a sense.
You're right, for sure.
That's got to be super helpful. And I guess over time, since you've learned so much, how have your pillars changed, or there's certain like non-negotiables, I guess, that you have either in program structure, or this kind of then lends itself to recruiting in a way? Like, are there certain things you look for that fit your pillars? I'll just open that door for you now.
Yeah, yeah. And so you had sent me this and that we would talk about this. I thought about it for a while. It was one of the ones that kind of got me. I was like, man,
Really?
non-negotiables. Just because I started thinking about it and I was like, man, I really don't have many non-negotiables. And I think my thing behind that is like guys are so different. Everybody is so different. My biggest thing, I want guys to have energy all the time. I want them to be happy to be there. And some days they might have to fake it a little bit, but like, hey, let's go, like, have some energy about you. And then I just want to see guys put in work and go after it and work hard. Yeah, as far as non-negotiables though, like whatever can make a guy feel good or whatever we think is going to help him the most, that's what I want him to do. We've also got guys, I mean, it'll drive me crazy at times, but like I've got a guy this year and he's kind of the guy like you say something to him and he'll just kind of look at you and it's like he's looking at you like you're an idiot. And for the first probably month of the year, like I would lose it and I would go off or whatever. But then I kind of realized like, man, he means nothing by it. That's just how he is. And I think a big part of that's just learning your guys. And once we can build trust with each other and I can trust my guys that they're trying to accomplish something and get something done, I can give them some freedom. I can let them go a little bit. I still have to get on guys every now and then. They're 18 years old for the most part. They're gonna screw up. They're gonna mess around. But I think the biggest thing is just developing that trust with my guys.
For sure. Now, you said you don't have non-negotiables. I'm sure there are things that you look for, maybe in the recruiting process, or things that you like to see, whether it's certain movement styles, or I know a lot of coaches talk about like filling out the clock when they're trying to do arm slots or different things like that. Are there any things that you're looking for? I guess that would be more, I don't want to say intangibles. I don't think that's the right word here. Beyond just your normal, yeah, I want a pitcher that's 90 plus and can throw three pitches, yet everybody wants that. But
Right.
like what else are you trying to find?
Yeah, I mean, and that's just over the years being at our level, Division II JUCO, found you need some different guys, some funky guys, whether they're submarine, sidearm, whatever it is. So those are always a plus. We do look to get a few of those guys. I'll say this on the recruiting side, and it's harder to tell pitching. I would say on the pitching side, it's more just how do guys compose themselves when they're on the mound. If they're going out there and they walk a few guys or don't get a call that goes their way and then they just blow up or they go in the dugout and start throwing things, it's like, we probably don't want that guy. But if they're a high energy guy, like I said, we love energy in our program. We preach it all the time. It's a big thing for us. And you can usually tell if a guy's high energy. We really like that. And especially if he has stuff to go along with it. I think the other thing I'll say, we do a lot of recruiting during the summer and going and watching summer ball. I'll be honest, I really do not enjoy watching summer ball at all. I feel like a lot of guys, they're just kind of out there. They don't play very hard and they're just kind of whatever. So when I do go watch summer ball games, man, when a guy plays hard, especially on the offensive side, defensive side, it really sticks out. And it's kind of like, I need to take a deeper look at that guy just because he just hit a rollover to the shortstop and he got after it down the line instead of running a five flat. So I would say that really sticks out with guys.
Yeah, I guess you are the recruiting coordinator, so you're also looking at guys on the offensive side. But I'm sure working with the pitchers, your background as a catcher, reading swings is probably a lot easier for you than most people would think.
Yeah, still feel like I need to get better at it, but definitely try on that side to work at it.
Do you call pitches or do you give that off to your catchers?
So yeah, I call them and we've got we use the electronic wristbands,
Nice.
call them in. What I tell our pitchers, it's, hey, anytime you want to shake, you're good. We've got something we say where it's like, no, now this is the time, like throw what I call. But man, I rarely ever do that. I want my pitchers to throw what they're most comfortable with, what they can throw with conviction. If I call change up and it's a full count and they're kind of like, I don't feel good about this, and they have that thought in their head, they're probably going to throw a ball or it's going to be nowhere close or it's just going to get lit up. If I call change up and they shake and want to go fastball or breaking ball, if they're convicted in that pitch, whatever the result is, I'm usually pretty good with it. Now, of course, we've had guys where it's like they shake and they get a tank hit off them. And then it's kind of like they come back to the dugout. And the first thing I always look at them, I'm like, hey, that's why you don't shake me. I'm always right, which, yeah, definitely not true. But it's a very good teaching point at that thing or at that point, just because whatever level they end up going on to or wherever they make it, at some point they got to understand how to pitch and what they need to call. So it's really easy to start teaching at that point. Guys can see that.
For sure. I think we could talk about this specific topic for a while and developing game sense, confidence in your pitches, understanding when to throw what, because stuff is great, but if you can't get the hitter out, the hitter doesn't care about your stuff. They're just going to hit the ball that's thrown at them. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what the track man says to the hitter. Yeah, having that feel or being able to tunnel, I think that is, I don't want to say an underappreciated a part of the game today, but I don't think it's, I guess, calling back to the pillars that we discussed earlier, to most players, that isn't one of their pillars today. I feel
Yeah.
like it takes the rude awakening, maybe in college ball, to understand it isn't just my 16-inch H break slider because
Right.
TrackMan says it's good. It's understanding the right pitch at the right time.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think that is definitely a lost art. We had a kid the past 2 years, Brett Foss. I know you've seen a little bit of Foss, all region pitcher for us. Really, really good. And huge like goofball, just love to mess around, love to have a good time. But man, when he got on the mound, I've never seen, number one, I've never seen such a competitor on the mound. But then he really understood how to pitch. And that's one of those things that's hard to find now. I'd go back to the recruiting side, and like if I can find a guy that I think really understands what he's doing on the mound, even if his stuff might not quite be there yet, those are kind of guys worth going after. Just ones that really understand what they're wanting to do to hitters.
Yeah, finding that compete factor
Yeah,
in the feel is massive.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
I that does kind of round out the tougher questions, or at least what I think is tougher. And
Yeah.
for some reason, the next question I'm about to ask you, many guests think is the toughest question that I ever ask, and I really don't know why.
Yeah.
But what else do you have going on in life that's exciting right now, aside from the baseball world? Anything you're looking into, learning about, reading, vacations? I don't care. Anything else besides baseball that is getting you going these days?
Oh man, that's tough. I guess
Yeah, a classic.
yeah. Yeah, it's tough. I could talk about a million different baseball things, you know. But no, me and my wife, I guess we're going on a vacation for Christmas this year. We're just going down the beach with her family. It'll be good. I'm excited about that. I guess Christmas is coming up here. We'll go on break soon. We won't have guys for about a month, which is honestly, I start losing my mind a little bit, and I'm trying to make sure they're all doing what they're supposed to while they're away. Now it's good to have a break and get to go home and see family and all that. So yeah, I'd say that's probably my biggest thing I get going right now.
For sure. Well, I'm glad you are going to get a break, even though it sounds like it might drive you insane.
Yeah, yeah, it's summer and Christmas break are they're tough.
Spoken like a classic baseball coach. Is there anything else that we didn't talk about that you want to throw out there? You feel like we covered it okay?
I think we covered quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good.
Nice. All right. Well, that works for me. Hayden, thanks so much again for coming on today. You've been awesome to work with, awesome to talk to. And I will bug you for one more thing. Is there a way that players, other coaches, anybody can reach out to you or the South Ark program?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. My email, it's on our website, southark.edu. But my email, it's hdow, so HDOW at southark.edu. Feel free to reach out, anything, talk to me. I'm pretty open and willing to talk to just about anybody. I've actually reached out to a ton of people before in my past few years, so I've always been grateful for that, to be more than willing to return the favor on that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you doing that and making yourself available. Everybody out there, I encourage you to take advantage of that. Yeah, Hayden's been awesome. It seems like every time that I throw him on a group chat or something like that, he is responding instant. So sorry to apply that pressure to you, but
Oh, no, you're
you've
good.
been great about it, and I thank you tremendously for it. And
Yeah.
then, of course, to all the listeners out there, thanks for laying back with us.